The fork slipped from Olivia Bennett's hand and clattered against her plate. Two uniformed officers stood beside her table, their expressions unreadable, their presence heavy. Zara's tiny arms clutched her mother's waist like a life raft. Her curls trembled against Olivia's blouse as her voice cracked, "Mommy, what's happening?" All around them, conversation had stopped. No more clinking of coffee cups, no laughter, no movement, just a tide of silent judgment pressing in from every side. Someone had called the police, not because of a fight, not because of theft, because Olivia was sitting at a corner table in an upscale cafe with her 5-year-old daughter. "She says the child is not hers," one officer said. He tilted, his head toward a woman standing a few feet away, expensively dressed, arms crossed, lips pursed in confidence. Patricia Langford. She looked uncomfortable. The little girl. "I was just trying to help," Patricia offered, as if her suspicion were a kindness. She kept saying she wanted her mommy, but this woman didn't answer right away. Olivia blinked. Once, twice, the words refused to register. "I am her mother," she said, her voice steady but low. The second officer pulled out a small notepad. "We're going to need some identification, ma'am. Proof of relation, if possible." Zara whimpered again, burying her face deeper into Olivia's lap, her pancakes uneaten, her crayons untouched. My ID is in my purse," Olivia said, reaching slowly. "But what does it prove? You want a birth certificate? At brunch?" Neither officer responded. Another whisper floated from a nearby table. "It's probably a nanny situation gone bad." Someone laughed, then hushed. Olivia's skin burned. She had been through boardrooms and bias. She had written checks for charities that would never picture someone like her on their pamphlets. But nothing had prepared her for this. Being seen as a stranger to her own child. "I need you to calm down," the taller officer added, though Olivia hadn't moved. "I am calm," she said. "You're the ones surrounding me while my daughter is crying. Let's not escalate this, ma'am. We just need to make sure everything's okay." Everything was not okay. Zara finally looked up, eyes wide and wet. "Mommy, do I have to go with them?" Olivia swallowed hard. Her voice failed her. The officer raised a brow. "Is there anyone else who can confirm the child is yours?" That was the moment. Not the whisper, not the pointing, not the stare of the woman who assumed. It was this, the silence that followed his question, when Olivia realized no one in that cafe believed her. And the worst part? She was not sure if it would matter even if they did. The morning had started with music. Zara had twirled around the living room in pink socks, her tiny arms raised as she declared, "Today I am a cupcake." Olivia had laughed, brushing her daughter's curls into a ponytail, careful to leave a few coils free, just the way Zara liked them. Brunch had been Olivia's idea. Marcus was flying out to Berlin that evening for another round of investor meetings. They had all agreed on one last slow morning together, pancakes, mango juice, and the corner booth at Primrose Cafe, the one Zara liked because it was near the big window with the ivy vines. Olivia had laid out 2 dresses for Zara, one yellow, one lavender. She watched as her daughter ran her hands across the fabrics, then hugged the yellow one. "Sunshine dress," she declared. Zara always chose yellow. In the hallway mirror, Olivia adjusted her own scarf. Simple pearl studs, minimal makeup, soft gray blazer. She had built her image with precision over the years. Not just polished, but disarming. Not just smart, but measured. She knew how to take the edge off her presence in a world that often misread her before she even spoke. That morning, she allowed herself to feel light. No tension between her shoulders. No forced smiles. Just a mother, her daughter, and her husband, slipping out into the city with laughter echoing down the apartment hallway. Marcus had insisted on walking them to the cafe before heading to the airport. He carried Zara on his shoulders most of the way while she narrated a wild story about a pancake dragon who sneezed maple syrup. Olivia took pictures. She planned to frame one for his desk. They were a striking family. Olivia often heard that. Beautiful couple, strangers would say, as if love across skin tones was an act of bravery. Most smiled, meant well, admired their unity. But others glanced too long, with a tilt of the head that asked questions they never voiced aloud. Marcus once joked they should hand out pamphlets titled, "Yes, we're married. Yes, she's our daughter. No, you don't need to ask." Their love had never wavered under that gaze. But Olivia had grown sharper in noticing it. Those quick glances, the subtle shifts in body language, the way conversations changed when she entered a room alone with Zara. In some spaces, her daughter's lighter skin raised questions Olivia was tired of answering. Still, she had made a promise, not to shield Zara from the world, but to teach her how to rise within it, to move boldly, to smile without apology, to know that she belonged, always. Zara, at 5, was full of questions. Why do some birds fly away faster than others? Why does syrup taste like hugs? Why do some people get quiet when we walk past? Olivia answered carefully, always choosing honesty wrapped in softness. Some people don't understand things they have never seen before, she once told her. But that does not mean there is something wrong with us. Inside, though, a fear had taken root. A quiet, persistent question she never said aloud. What if love is not enough? What if I cannot protect her from being made to feel like she does not belong, even in my arms? The cafe came into view with its ivy-wrapped windows and soft piano, music spilling through the open door. Zara had skipped ahead, pulling Olivia by the hand. Come on, Mommy, the pancake dragon is waiting. They stepped inside, hearts light. That was less than 30 minutes ago. Now? Zara's laughter had turned to trembling. Olivia sat frozen, surrounded by stares she could not meet. Your child seems distressed, Patricia Langford had said earlier, as if concern gave her license to assume. As if Olivia's brown hand on Zara's shoulder needed justification, she wanted to shout. You were not there when she spilled juice on her shoes and cried until I kissed her feet clean. You were not there when she woke from a nightmare and whispered, Can you sing the moon song, Mommy? You do not know the smell of her hair after a bath, or the way she insists on sleeping with her socks on, but shouting would not help. Shouting never helped. Instead, Olivia looked down at the little girl pressed against her side, confused, afraid, and still wearing the yellow sunshine dress they had picked out together. She remembered Zara pulling her into the cafe, her grip tight, her eyes wide with joy. You sit by the window, Mommy. I'll draw the pancake dragon. That joy now lay crumpled beneath the weight of suspicion. And Olivia, who had once walked into boardrooms with steel in her spine, found herself searching the room for someone, anyone who would speak up, who would say, She is the mother. I saw them. I see them. No one did. Not yet. The room was too quiet. City sounds floated in through the hotel window, distant sirens, the soft rumble of late-night traffic, but inside, only the steady rhythm of Zara's breath filled the air. She had fallen asleep, wrapped in Olivia's scarf, her thumb tucked into the edge of her lip, still wearing the yellow dress. Olivia had not had the heart to change her. The innocence of sleep felt like something sacred, untouched. Olivia sat on the edge of the bed, motionless, staring at the floor as if it might offer an answer she had missed. She was not angry anymore. That had come and gone during the elevator ride. Anger had turned to something colder, hollow, heavy. She had replayed the scene 100 times since. The moment Patricia's voice rang out like a siren. That woman is not her mother. The pause, the heads turning, the silence that followed, louder than any accusation, and then the officers. No questions, no introductions, just authority, already leaning toward one version of the truth. Not hers. "Can you prove you're the mother?" one of them had asked, tone flat, as if the burden belonged solely to Olivia, as if her word, her presence, was not enough. She had shown Zara's photo on her phone, her insurance card, a folded-up copy of a preschool enrollment form from her wallet. The officer barely glanced. But Patricia's word, that had been enough to stop everything. Why? She shifted her gaze to the ceiling. What had they seen? A black woman, well-dressed but unfamiliar. A crying child who looked more ambiguous than anyone wanted to admit. And a white woman, well known in that neighborhood, pointing with certainty. Was that all it took? A single assumption, dressed as concern. She leaned forward, elbows on knees, fingers laced tightly. Did I speak too firmly? Should I have smiled more? Was my tone too sharp when I said, "She's my daughter"? The questions came fast, each one cutting deeper. She hated herself for asking them. But they were rooted in a lifetime of trying to disarm the world around her. What did I do wrong? And the part that ached the most? What did Zara see? She had tried to shield her daughter, wrapped her childhood in books, soft words, and bedtime, songs about wonder. She had spoken truth gently, painted the world with as much hope as she could afford. But none of that had mattered in that moment. Zara had cried because she was scared. But what would she remember? Would she recall the woman's voice accusing Olivia of being a stranger? Would she remember how no one in the cafe came to their defense? Or would the memory become something shapeless? A quiet message, whispered early into her understanding of the world. Your mother's arms are not always enough to protect you. Olivia stood, pacing the room slowly, careful not to wake her child. Tuck. Mirror caught her reflection. Same face, same eyes. But something had shifted. She did not know what to call it yet. It lived beneath her ribs, somewhere between shame and resolve. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. She watched the screen light up in her hand, thumb hovering over the answer button. He was at the gate, probably minutes from boarding. She could almost hear his voice, warm, steady, protective. He would be furious. He would ask questions, offer solutions. And beneath it all, he would worry about her silence, about how she processed pain by folding it away in neat corners. She let it ring once more before answering. Hey, love, he said breathless. You okay? You didn't text back after brunch. Everything all right? Olivia hesitated. She looked at Zara, at the scarf wrapped around her like armor, at the dried tear trails on her cheek. Yeah. We made it back. She's asleep. Marcus exhaled, the sound of relief clear even over the phone. How was the cafe? Another pause. She swallowed. The words burned. It was fine. She lied. Not because she wanted to protect him from the truth, but because she still struggled to believe it herself. Saying it aloud would make it too real. And part of her still hoped that by morning, the weight in her chest would feel like nothing more than exhaustion. Marcus kept talking about the flight, the layover in Amsterdam, the hotel they booked near the conference venue. She responded when needed, her voice soft, careful. When the call ended, she sat back down. It was not just the incident. It was everything it represented. For so long, she had walked quietly through the cracks, smiling at cashiers who glanced too, long, laughing politely at comments that stung. She had navigated rooms where her presence was an exception, not the norm. She had learned how to carry herself in a way that made others feel safe, even if it meant compromising her own sense of self. But tonight, she had stayed silent. Again, not to protect Zara, not even to de-escalate, but because part of her still believed that being reasonable would be rewarded. That playing by the rules would protect her. It did not. and something inside her, something that had bent for years, finally stopped bending. This would not happen again. Not like this. Marcus arrived with the sun. He swept into the hotel room like a man who had replayed the nightmare 100 times in his head on the flight home, and none of those imagined versions prepared him for seeing Olivia's face up close. Not hollow, not furious, just tired. Zara squealed and ran to him. He scooped her up, kissed her forehead, spun her in a circle, and asked how many pancakes she had eaten without him. But Olivia said nothing. Her silence was not new, but it felt different now. When Zara was settled in the next room watching cartoons, Marcus sat down on the arm of the couch, elbows on knees. "Tell me everything." Olivia did. This time she told the full truth. No edits. No soft edges. Marcus's jaw tightened with each sentence. His foot tapped against the carpet. By the time she reached the part where the officer looked at her ID like it was counterfeit, he was gripping the edge of the cushion. "We'll deal with this," he said. "I know someone on the city council. He'll get it in front of the department." Quietly, efficiently. Her head turned sharply. Quietly. He blinked. "Olivia, this stuff gets messy fast. You start naming people. Publicly, they double down. We're not trying to make enemies. We just want accountability." She stood. "No, Marcus. You want comfort. I want truth." He exhaled hard. "That's not fair." She looked at him then. Not as the man she loved, but as a man who would never fully understand what it meant to walk into a room already assumed guilty. "All my life I've played their game," she said. Polite, calm, non-threatening. And still, one white woman pointed, and I became invisible. That is not something I can unfeel. Marcus opened his mouth, but the words stalled. He looked down, ashamed, not of her pain, but of his instinct to soften it. They sat like that for a long time. Two people who loved each other deeply, trying to bridge a quiet divide made louder by the world outside. That afternoon, as they tried to reclaim normalcy, Zara climbed into Olivia's lap, toy elephant in hand. "Mommy," she asked gently, "why did that lady think I wasn't yours?" Olivia froze. She kissed the top of Zara's head and wrapped her arms around her, buying herself seconds. Seconds were not enough. "Well," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "some people don't understand families like ours. But they're wrong. You are mine, always." Zara nodded slowly, but Olivia saw it, the seed of doubt, the question that would live beneath her daughter's skin like a quiet shadow. That night, after Zara fell asleep between them, Olivia walked to the window and opened her laptop. The city lights blinked below, but her eyes were fixed on the blank page in front of her. She did not plan the words. They poured out. She wrote about the cafe, about the stairs, the officers, the invisible line that turned her motherhood into something suspicious. She wrote about love, how it was not always armor, about the exhaustion of explaining your right to exist, about her daughter's question and the silence that followed. She did not use her name. She did not need to. By morning, the post had traveled. Shared quietly, then loudly. Women of color reposted it. Biracial mothers commented. Even strangers left messages, some outraged, some heartbroken, some just saying, "Thank you. This happened to me too." Marcus read it without speaking. He looked at her differently afterward, not with judgment, not even worry, but reverence. He had always admired her strength, but now he saw the cost of it. A few days later, a message slid into her inbox. "Hi, I'm a journalist with the Civic Lens. Your piece moved me deeply. I'd love to talk on or off the record. This story matters." She read the message 3 times. Her finger hovered over the screen. She could ignore it. Pretend this was a momentary venting. Let it pass. But something deeper stirred. Was this her moment to speak louder, or was she risking it all, her privacy, her family's peace, for a story the world might forget next week. The message waited. Just a blinking cursor now, and Olivia just stared. The interview was done over Zoom, her camera off, her name hidden, just her voice, clear, steady, and unshakably human. The Civic Lens published the piece a week later. She is Mine, a mother's story of love, fear, and racial bias in plain sight. It spread like fire in dry brush. Within hours, social feeds flooded with the headline. By evening, it had been picked up by national outlets. Hashtags trended, op-eds followed. Some praised her courage, others called her a liar, but it no longer mattered if they knew her name. Her truth had cracked something open. Days passed, and then Patricia's name slipped out. Not from Olivia, but from a local cafe employee who had recognized the scene and put two and two together. Soon after, Patricia released a public statement. It was the kind of apology that said nothing. "I deeply regret the misunderstanding," she wrote. "I was acting in concern for the child's safety. I never intended harm, no ownership, no accountability. Just polished blame in disguise." Olivia read it once and closed her laptop. She was not surprised, but the world was watching now. A producer from Morning View called the next day. National television, live segment, a chance to speak, not as a victim, but as a mother who loved her daughter more than silence. Marcus paced the kitchen, phone in hand, while Olivia listened. He waited until she hung up. "Are you sure you want this?" he asked. "Once you go public, there's no pulling back." "I'm already public," she said softly. "They just do not know my face yet." He looked at her the way people look at the sun, worried for the burn, but unable to look away. She went, hair pulled back, minimal makeup, no stylist, no rehearsed lines, just the truth. The host introduced her. "Today we're joined by Olivia Bennett, the woman behind the viral essay that sparked a national conversation on racial bias and motherhood." Olivia took a breath. "I never wanted to be in this position," she began. "But when someone points at you in public and says you do not belong to your own child, something inside you breaks." She paused. "I named the piece She Is Mine for a reason. Because in that moment, when everyone looked at me like I was a threat, the only thing I wanted to say, over and over, was that. She is mine." Photos of Olivia and Zara flashed on screen. A shot of them laughing at the park. Another at Zara's last birthday, frosting on her nose. Olivia continued, voice steady. "This is not just my story. It is the story of every mother who's had to prove she belongs. Every child who has watched their parent shrink under suspicion. I spoke up because silence never saved me." The interview lasted 8 minutes, but it lived for weeks. Clips were shared by celebrities. Talk show hosts quoted her. Mothers across the country posted their own versions of She Is Mine. Some shared photos, others just names and dates. But they all carried Olivia's fire. She had spoken for herself, and for thousands. Emails poured in. Invitations followed. Panel discussions, university keynotes, advocacy events. Her inbox became a map of places she had never been, but where her story was already known. She tried to keep up, replying with gratitude, declining what felt too large. But something inside her had shifted, no longer invisible, no longer apologetic. One evening, she returned home late from a small forum in D.C. Zara was curled up on the couch with Marcus, the television casting soft light across the room. "Mommy," she squealed, bouncing up and pointing at the screen. There she was. Olivia, frozen mid-sentence, hand over heart, eyes focused. Zara beamed. "That's my mommy." Olivia smiled, bent down, and kissed her daughter's forehead. "She's mine, too," she whispered, pulling her close. And for the first time in weeks, she felt something deeper than pain, or fury, or exhaustion. She felt whole. Sunday mornings look different now. Not quieter, but clearer. Once a month, Olivia sits in a circle of folding chairs at the local community center. Around her, mothers, fathers, grandparents, families who look like hers. Some black, some white, some in between. All of them holding stories no one else quite understood. Until now. The group is called Whole. It started as a few emails. A few brave messages from women who read her piece and said, "This happened to us too." Now it is a room full of voices. Listening, sharing, healing out loud. Olivia does not lead it. Not exactly. She just opens the door. Marcus sits beside her, his hand resting on her knee. He used to think silence was strength. Now he speaks up, softly, but with purpose. There is no script in these gatherings. No one tries to fix anything. They just tell the truth and let the room carry the weight together. Zara's school is different now too. Olivia and Marcus moved her to a place where her curls are not rare and her lunchbox does not spark questions. Where the walls are covered with books by people who look like her. Where difference is not something to defend. She thrives. She draws pictures of their family with wide smiles. She tells her friends her mommy is famous, and not because she was on TV. Because in her words, she made something unfair into something strong. At home, Olivia writes sometimes, not for blogs, not for interviews, just for herself. Journal pages scattered with ink, truths folded between grocery lists and appointments. She writes down what she feels, what she knows, what she refuses to carry anymore. And she draws lines now, boundaries she once hesitated to hold. Like who gets access to her time, what questions she will no longer politely answer, what rooms she no longer enters to prove she belongs. Some days are still heavy, but she no longer mistakes heaviness for weakness. One afternoon, a cream envelope arrives in the mailbox. No return address, just her name, handwritten in careful script. She opens it slowly. It is from Patricia, a typed letter, formal in tone, measured in rhythm. I have reflected on my actions. I see now that I made assumptions. I am truly sorry. For the pain I caused, there is no signature, just a name at the bottom. As if it were written by a stranger, not the woman who shouted across a cafe and cracked open a mother's worst fear. Olivia folds the letter and tucks it into a drawer. No reply. No need. She does not carry that moment anymore. It lives behind. Her, like a storm that came, ripped through, and left the ground more solid than before. On a warm September morning, Olivia and Zara walk hand in hand through the farmer's market. Vendors call out with samples, fresh peaches, scented soaps. Local honey. Zara skips ahead, then circles back, pulling her mother toward the flower stand. A woman nearby nudges her friend. They whisper. A glance. Recognition. Olivia sees it, but does not shrink. Not anymore. A smile finds her face, quiet and certain. She is not hiding. She is not explaining. She is just here, mother, wife, advocate, whole. Zara tugs at her again. "Mummy, can we get sunflowers?" Olivia nods. "Yes, baby. As many as you want." They walk on, past strangers, past memories, into whatever comes. Next. Together. The afternoon sun filters through the living room window, spilling soft gold across the floor. Zara sits cross-legged on a spread of newspaper. Paintbrush in one hand, the other streaked with purple and yellow. Olivia kneels beside her, her own fingers smudged with blue. A blank canvas waits between them. They are painting without rules. No outlines, no plans, just color wherever it wants to go. Zara hums as she works, then pauses, tilts her head. "Mommy," she says, "will people always think we don't belong?" The question lands gently, but not lightly. Olivia does not rush to answer. She sets her brush down, wipes her hands on an old t-shirt, looks into her daughter's eyes. So open, so knowing already. They might, she says, honest and steady. But we always will, because we know who we are, and that's enough. Zara nods, as if she understands something far older than her years. She dips her brush into brown. Olivia chooses a pale pink. Side by side, they paint two hands, one dark, one light, reaching for each other, intertwined in the center of the canvas. The colors overlap, edges blurring, neither one swallowed by the other, just together. Whole. Olivia watches her daughter carefully mix orange and green, tongue between her teeth, focused. There is joy in her movement, freedom, a kind of ease that once felt impossible. For the first time since that day in the cafe, since the stares, the silence, the disbelief, Olivia feels it. Safety, not the kind others grant, but the kind you grow inside yourself, inch by inch, moment by moment. She leans back, letting the warmth of the day settle in her bones. Outside, the world keeps moving, but here, in this room, with this girl, with this love, everything is exactly where it should be.